It's Song Talk Radio with Michael, Neil, Phil, and the gang.
Welcome to Song Talk Radio. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. That's most of the time. Usually, we share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. We are curious to hear from our listeners today as to what you might learn today on today's show. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and with me are the action-ready members of the Song Talk Radio action team. We have funny Phil Emery.
I'm hilarious. I'm in stitches.
That's right. And we have memorable Mike Proudfoot.
Oh, you won't forget me after tonight.
No, for sure. And to our listeners, please send your comments and questions to @SongTalk Radio on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or feedback at songtalk.ca, and we'll share your thoughts on the show. And please visit us at songtalk.ca to find out how you can be a guest. And before we get to the meat of today's show, we have our 2022 edition of the Song Talk Radio Songwriting Challenge. Why don't you tell the folks about that, Mike?
I shall do that. First of all, the most important thing to know is we've extended the deadline a bit. We've been getting submissions in, which we're very happy about.
Yeah.
This year, the challenge is to write a song from a title. In the past, we've had write a song from a chord progression that does not change. And then before that, it was a positive song, but using minor in a minor key. So this year, it is write a song from a title. And the title is Why Do You Cry? And we will be featuring, first, the three of us will play our songs on a show, probably in April now, I think. And then after that, we'll do a couple of shows on our listeners' contributions. So please send in your song and tell us a bit about you and what the process of writing the song was like. And yeah, maybe we'll even talk to you on our show.
And
I think that's about it, right?
Thanks so much to everyone who's sent in their version of Why Do You Cry already. It's been great to receive them, and we are cataloging them all and filing them away for those future episodes. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's very nice to get contributions from our audience, and especially when we're all given the same set of limitations, because I find that often limitations are quite helpful.
Absolutely.
And the challenges are supposed to be a challenge. So don't cheat. Try to honor the spirit of it and stick to it. So none of the why do you lie? That doesn't count. Or where do you fry? No. Or how do you? Yeah, exactly. Why do you fry? None of that.
Yeah. And keep in mind,
do you also know?
Yeah. And keep in mind too that the challenge is just that. It's sort of like an exercise. So you can write a song and you can be perfectly happy with it and be like, okay, that's finished. Or you can treat it as this is a draft of a song that meets the parameters of the challenge. And then you can write a version too that that strays from the parameters, but then is a better song. I did that with the first challenge. I didn't feel like the minor chord progression really served the song well. So I wrote a version 2 of it that had a major chord progression in the chorus, and it no longer met the needs of the challenge, but who cares? It's my song and do what I want with it.
Exactly. And you're just too gosh darn happy to have a minor chord song.
Exactly. That's why all my chord progressions are minor.
Very true.
And so please get those submissions coming in. We're really enjoying them.
Yes. And of course, everyone has been playing Hurdle, I would imagine, which is a audio version of Wordle, which is taking the world by storm. And it's kind of fun. You have to identify a song using as short amount of audio as possible. It's good fun.
Well, that's how that works. I haven't yet played it. I just wondered. I thought it was just song titles that were like Wordle, but it's different. You say
it's actually audible. It's actually an audio. You remember Name That Tune, that game show on TV years back? It's basically that.
There's now, as I don't know if it's still on the air, but there's a show called Beat Shazam with Jamie Foxx, where it's kind of the same sort of thing. Where there's three pairs of teams. They play songs from particular genres that they get turns choosing, and if they get it right, they make money, and if they get it wrong, they eventually get booted. It's pretty interesting. But it just makes me realize no matter how many songs I know, there are people out there that know way more than I do.
Way more out there that you don't know. I mean, how many get uploaded to Spotify and other streaming services every day? It's like in the thousands, millions, whatever.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And I'll admit, I mean, I tried the hurdle a couple of times. And I'm like, I've even though I've listened to the full 5 seconds of it or whatever the maximum time they give you, I still don't know what that song is. I've never heard it before in my life. So,
what you do is you play it on, I don't know what, it's an app, I don't know. Can you play it on your computer? You play it on your computer and you have Shazam running at the same time.
Yeah, you have Shazam running in the background.
I believe that violates the spirit of the game.
Yeah, it's cheating.
Yeah.
So what would the point be?
Yeah.
Look, I can operate an app that tells me what a song is quickly.
Yeah. Well, as opposed to the classic Wordle, which is now classic. It's only like a couple months old, but it's classic now, I guess.
That's true.
Different variations, but classic Wordle. I mean, I know all the 5-letter words. Like there's a chance I'll get it. Whereas Hurdle, if you've never heard the song, there's no hope for you. There's literally no hope.
So far, I've done quite well, I must admit.
Okay, well, you know a dozen more songs than I do, apparently.
Well, they're in a genre that Phil knows more than you.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Today's was Song 2 by Blur.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I bet
that I would have got.
Yeah, for the first 2 snare hits.
Exactly.
I guess there's
that's pretty recognizable
on there for me.
Possibly not. So, shall we get to the meat of the show? It's an interesting one today.
We're talking about the 1978 music mockumentary, The Rutles. All You Need Is Cash. And as I understand it, this is one of Phil's favorite films. So I'm going to let him take it away.
Thanks very much.
What's so great about The Rutles?
Well, this was started off as a skit in a 1975 BBC television series, Rutland Weekend Television, with Monty Python's Eric Idle. And he worked with a songwriter named Neil Innes, and started to come up with this idea of kind of doing a version of the Beatles, and they came up with the Rutles. And so they came up with this movie in 1978. And what's really fun is it's this band called the Rutles, or the Fab Four, and it's obviously modeled on the Beatles. And it's an interesting movie from a songwriting standpoint, because by hearing someone rewrite a Beatles song, it helps you understand the formula that the Beatles use to make their songs. And of course they use, not a formula in a derivative form, but formula in, the way they handle their arrangements, the way they handle their songs. And it's an interesting thing is, instead of actually just, doing like a verse and a chorus of these songs, they actually wrote full songs. And they wrote and recorded and produced these songs to be as much like the Beatles as they possibly can, which is kind of strange because, for this, they could have just done a verse and a chorus. But they didn't. They actually did the whole song. And it's obviously done because they obviously love the Beatles. Another interesting thing I thought is, you have Weird Al, and he does versions of, the songs like Beat It. He does Eat It. And so the whole joke is the funny lyrics. And these aren't really funny lyrics as much as sometimes they're a little silly, but generally they're actually surprisingly straightforward. And they're all also really, really, really good songs. Each one, even though I think at first it's easy to dismiss until you think about, okay, they're trying to reference a song, writing a different song that kind of is enough of that song so that you figure out what it is. It's actually quite interesting. So do you want to listen to one now? And just to kind of get started, and then we'll talk a bit more about it?
Sure.
All right,
2, 3, 4. Working up a fever
It just made me think of something. And Neil, you hadn't heard this, heard these Rutles before, had you?
I hadn't.
Well, I got a couple of things going on about it, but just at this particular point, listening to the songs, all the different songs, and they did a really good job about going through the Beatles catalog, you know, from the, you know, the little pop ditties to the psychedelic to the you know, the experimental stuff later on. The thing that, I mean, the harmonies, they were really good at sounding like the Beatles, and George Harrison's guitar sound, but they didn't get Ringo's drumming. None of the songs sounded like Ringo. And I think that's pretty interesting, because you'd think the drumming would be the easiest thing to imitate. But like in that song, that's what stands out. You go, that sounds nothing like Ringo. You know, the harmonies are Beatle-esque, the guitars are Beatle-esque, the drum, no. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Ringo was a very unique drummer, because what was he, left-handed?
Left-handed, played a right kit.
Yeah. So really, no one does that. Like everything.
Yeah, and he had a really kind of like, his time was good, but it always felt a bit behind. And because of the setup of his kit, his fills were pretty interesting too. But speaking of interesting fills, what do you think, Phil?
Well, it's it's great to hear those, the George Harrison kind of guitars. And George Harrison was actually involved with the project.
He was in the movie.
Yes, he was actually in the movie.
I missed that.
You dressed up. You played an interview. I didn't realize it at the time, but in the YouTube comments, that was George Harrison.
Because there's Bill Murray and Danny Aykroyd and John Belushi and Mick Jagger, and Zelda Radner.
Yes.
And so the Mick Jagger bits, they were filmed for the film. They weren't like taken from other interviews or something like that.
No, because he referred to the characters like Dirk and Stig and Nasty.
I was looking for that. Is he just talking about the Beatles? But they just clipped it out.
No, but the Ed Sullivan clip, they did a really obvious edit. And now the Rutles, they didn't even try to sound like him. It's a very funny film, very Monty Python-esque. It made me think of now I haven't seen it, but I have heard the soundtrack of the Cirque du Soleil Vegas show Love, about because one of the things they do in the Rutles is they take very familiar Beatle riffs or sounds, but they put it in different songs. Like they'll take a familiar fill or break or something, but it isn't in the song that you think it's from. It's in a different one. And there's a kind of a cut and paste or a remix to the Beatles' work in Love as well, which is very enjoyable. You get to hear the songs you know so well in a different context. You get to rehear it. And it was produced by Giles Martin, George Martin's son, too.
Yes.
So stayed in the family.
Yeah, the Love thing is a very, very different thing, but it's really remarkable.
But it did remind me of listening to this. I go, they're taking pieces from other Beatle, like other songs, and putting them in. Sometimes. I mean, the ouch, which is help, is just that, and a few others like that.
What it actually reminded me of was the Simpsons episode about the B sharps, where Homer does his flashback to his barbershop quartet, and they do a little bit of Beatles parody in there, where Barney gets the Japanese conceptual artist girlfriend. It's pretty funny. But the remarkable thing was the songs, actually, because it's like they just took Beatles songs and kind of flipped them over or played them backwards or played them upside down, or you know what I mean? Like they're just like the melodies are kind of the same melodies, but they're inverted, and the guitar tones are obviously there, and the structures pretty much copy and paste, and then the lyrics too. They're just like little variations on the themes, right? So
they didn't play them for joke, and when you compare it to
sometimes some of it they seem to be deliberately more insipid. Like they're mocking the. Like they're not as deeply thought out.
I mean, but something like "ouch" is quite. I mean, it's so obvious and blatant that you can't help but laugh at it. Like, even though the lyric isn't necessarily funny.
Ouch! Please don't hurt me. Ouch! Don't desert me. Ouch! 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 Yeah. That's great. Well, and also "Get Up and Go," which of course is
it's a version of
Get Back.
Get Back.
And there was some lawsuits over this because they were very close. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Who was the humorless Beatle that sued them?
Actually, wasn't the
because it wasn't George, was it? Oh, it was Dick James Music.
Yeah, no, it was a company that had the catalog at the time.
Oh, I thought that was Dick James. Maybe it was Alan Klein's.
No,
it depends, I guess,
something.
when it was done. Okay.
Yeah, there's in the Wikipedia. There's a whole section for lawsuits. ATV Music, the then owner of the publishing rights.
Oh, okay, right.
Sued Dennis for copyright infringement. Although Lennon's hired a musicologist to defend the originality of the songs, they settled out of court for 50% of the royalties on 14 songs.
Okay.
Now, I've got a question for you guys. Do you think that part of it works because Beatles songs are so familiar? I can't imagine that this would work with any other band, like not even the Rolling Stones or like other bands that have been around for a long time. There's just something, the way that Beatle songs and the Beatles are in music's DNA these days. You know, like they created so much space for every other band to work in that I can't think of any other band or artist that you could do the same thing with, where you could take so many songs and that have so many recognizable parts to them. The guitar sound, the harmonies, the fills, the arrangements are all so definitively Beatle-esque, and I don't know that there's any other band that has done that.
Yeah, I mean,
it kind of made me really appreciate the Beatles in that regard. They go, oh my God, they were first out of the gate as part of how they were able to do that, but they're also immensely talented. You know,
yeah, I mean, you say these days, but that film came out in 1978 when, I don't know, Beatlemania was still a thing in 1978, but it was much more in the popular consciousness. Like even today, like I saw a comment on the IMDb page where someone said, I used to play Rutles songs at parties, and people thought they were like B-sides of Beatles songs that they never heard before. And this was back in the day or whatever, right? So I think I don't know, for people who are invested and know even a little bit about the Beatles and particularly about their story, how they played in Hamburg and then they had the whole "we're bigger than Jesus" thing, and how they
the documentary
and how the musical style changed over the years and all the sort of points that they hit on in the Rutles. I think if you're familiar with that stuff, then that has meaning for you. If I showed this movie to my wife, it would go over her head and she wouldn't care one bit.
No, you have to know about the Beatles' life in order to get the humor. Yeah. But the songs, you don't need to know anything about I mean, if you need to know Beatles songs to get the joke, I guess, or to get that it's a parody. Otherwise, you just think.
I wonder if some people maybe because they're so similar to the Beatles musically, like I wonder if people would just think that they're Beatles songs, that they are Beatles songs that they never heard before.
No, I actually because Heather and I watched it, and I watched it a couple of times for the show, and Heather is familiar with the Beatles, but not as familiar as I am. And, she definitely got, many of the jokes. So I think the Beatles are a little bit more well-known, even for the general person. There's a reason why they keep on outselling like most new acts.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Mike, in that you couldn't do this with the Stones or with somebody else, but the Beatles are so embedded in popular culture and continue to be that you can. I mean,
you could obviously do a Stones, like one or two, maybe, or a couple of Stones style songs. You could probably do Led Zeppelin style songs or, Who style songs. But to have so many songs that are done in earnest that, like you have the early stuff with that harmonies that you go, oh yeah, that's that. And then you have ouch, help, and then you have the
Sergeant
psychedelic
Pepper.
time, and then the Sgt. Pepper era, and the Lucy in the Sky, which is Sgt. Pepper, and then the All You Need Is Love, and then even their solo stuff. You know,
was it Let It Be? What was the parody song?
Or Let It Rot.
Let It Rot.
Of course.
Yeah,
You would do a minor chord progression instead of anyway.
I mean, they even just did harmonies with the clean McCartney and the kind of rough voiced Lennon harmonies as well. Like there's a lot of really distinctive signatures.
Yeah,
Beatle
the
music.
accents. They got the accents down, I think.
Yeah, and it's really great to be able to pick out the the way the songs were arranged and what the Beatles did really great things with call and response. There'd be a vocal line and then a response by George Harrison's guitar. And it's by listening to this really helps sort of bring those things out to the forefront so you can use them in your own productions. Like, okay, well, that's how they do it.
Yeah, it would be, I would think, as a songwriter, really instructive to listen to the Beatles song and then the Rutles song. The Beatles song, and go, okay, how is it different? How is it the same? What is it that is working? Why is one song better than the other? I mean, it's not to be competitive. I mean, one's an original, one's a pastiche. But when you listen to it, you go, okay, what makes it better? Or why is this working slightly better? Or is it just the integrity and the honesty? Or is there something else in the arrangement, the writing, and the playing that makes it better?
What's interesting also is how, the characters, they weren't sort of made stupid or they weren't made... arrogant. Like when you think about, this is Spinal Tap, and they were kind of dopey, and sort of the metal type of arrogance. So they played that up, but these were actually very straight ahead versions of the Beatles. They didn't make them idiots or stupid.
Yeah, they weren't. Yeah, exactly. They weren't mocking them. The whole thing was sort of interesting in that regard. That you kind of go, okay, they're satirizing it, but to what point?
Well, the storyline of the film was more satirical than the songs themselves.
Oh, definitely, the songs weren't.
Yeah, but you're right, Mike. Clearly they studied the Beatles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they really took a careful listen and a careful look at all the little details that made those songs work and sort of, reapplied it. We had that guest last year, J. Gordon Wright.
Yeah.
Remember he was doing very, very modern Beatle-esque songs. And it was kind of an interesting thing to see how someone, in 2021 would write a Beatles song, quote unquote.
Yeah, it was interesting. And
here's something. Innes wrote, composed, and produced the music. He relied on his memory of Beatles music and not careful later analysis to create sound-like songs.
Yeah.
Well, that would explain why you would get song like mixed. So like, the She Loves You would have the bridge from a different Beatles song or something. So he was just remembering all the hooks, all the distinctive pieces, and just piling them into songs when he needed them.
Okay, then. All right. And so they didn't study. Fine. Good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's...
Neil Innes was in the Bonzo... can't remember the name, but he was in an actual band.
Bonzo
That's
Doo-Doo
it,
Band?
yeah.
Bonzo Dog Doo-Dah Band.
Yeah.
That was his...
What is that?
It was a band, and it was... they were produced by George Harrison, I think.
Okay.
So there was a lot of version. It's, if nothing else, just the amount of work that went into to create and polish and produce these songs to the level they did is quite good. In truth, it's kind of one joke. So, 1 hour is about as much as you could possibly take. I
was surprised after 20 minutes. I'm going, wow, they're going to keep doing this.
They're going to keep on going.
And the humor is, like, the thing about Spinal Tap and its humor is it's fully invested in the characters and the reality of it. Whereas the humor in this is from wordplay and mocking situations. And like we're at the banks of the Mississippi and he's standing by a bank. you know, as opposed to on the river. You know, that kind of, you know, so it's a joke, and then you move on to the next joke.
Yeah, yeah. I think my favorite bit was the when people started buying their records just to burn them, and the fans were burning records, and some of the fans burnt their fingers trying to burn their records.
But it's also an interesting thing about work as a creator working with tropes, because one of the tropes that they used is the way documentaries were made back then were made with someone with a microphone standing in front of something, giving you the intro. And of course, people don't make documentaries that way. Either there's no narrator at all, and if there is a narrator, they don't actually have a microphone. So it's interesting, if you're not familiar with the tropes, there's another show, I don't know if you ever saw it, called Police Squad, which sent up all the, the police shows of the 70s. Of the 70s. And it was hilarious because it sent up every one of those tropes. But of course, they don't make cop shows like that anymore. So that trope, if you're not familiar with the source material, it just seems kind of silly. So
you have to be old.
Yeah, it seems kind of old-fashioned, but I mean, but that was the, I don't know, trope, but it was the way they did it back then, so that's what they did. Sense. Yeah, but
tropes don't necessarily last.
No.
So certain humor things don't stand the test of time.
Well, that's why satire can date, because you need the knowledge of the thing that's being mocked, and if you don't have that, then it doesn't quite hold up. You sort of need to have you've done your work, your research, or your homework before you can appreciate the satire.
Yeah.
There's a fun new show on BBC Box called Upstart Crow, which is about William Shakespeare, starring David Mitchell, and it's great because it's full of like inside Shakespeare jokes and inside theater jokes, and Heather gets, she really loves it, even though there's lots of stuff she doesn't get.
This sounds interesting, because, that's what he got a negative review that called him such a thing, right? That's where that comes from?
Yes. It's really good.
Yeah. And I think there's a theater company in Toronto called Upstart Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it, the Rutles is really, it is quite very, very specific in terms of its scope of what it's set.
Yeah, the humor is, I think, as you pointed out, it is one note, but musically, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
and you can kind of go, okay, why does it's a really good way to look at Beatles songs freshly.
Yeah,
and with a clear eye.
The jokes may not stand up, but I'm actually curious to go find the album on Spotify now and see how it holds up just as an album.
The songs are great. I wind up singing them on my own. Am I in love? Must be your love. Good fun.
All right.
Yeah. So that's the Rutles, and it's actually available on YouTube. So
you can watch the whole thing on YouTube, which is pretty cool.
So it's nice and free. And
just the way you can watch SongTalk, our shows also on YouTube. We're like virtually neighbors.
That is true.
Okay.
I'd love a chance to talk about this one because it's a show that I think most songwriters should watch and appreciate how much work went into it, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a joke, but the songs weren't jokes, really.
Yeah, the songs are what impressed me the most, for sure. It's definitely worth checking out for the songs, even if the jokes are kind of, some fall flat, whatever, it's fine. But, good stuff. Okay, thanks Phil, for bringing that to our attention. We'll certainly put the YouTube on our on the show post on our website at songtalk.ca, so everyone can check that out. So thank you to the Rutles. If you're listening, thanks for giving us that. And
unfortunately, he passed away in 2020. So
Eric Idle passed away in 2020.
No,
Neil Innes.
Oh, Neil Innes. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, R.I.P. then. Okay, and I'd like to hear from you, our listeners, so please send your comments on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at SongTalk Radio, or send us an email at feedback@songtalk.ca. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel for live performance videos and full episodes and all our virtual boxes. Subscribe today to the SongTalk Radio podcast on your favorite podcast provider, and don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter at songtalk.ca. It comes out about once a month-ish. You'll find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the show on our resources page on the website. And wherever you are in the world, please join us online via Zoom at our next monthly Song Talk meetup. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. Stop by songtalk.ca. And for the next one, feel free to bring your draft version of the Song Talk Radio Songwriting Challenge entitled "Why Do You Cry?" So
that would be good.
Definitely a good idea to do that. And you can follow me at neilmodi.com. You can follow Phil.
PhilEmery.ca.
And Mr. Mike.
On Instagram at ProudFit420, but I haven't posted anything in months, so don't bother.
Because you haven't left the house to take any pictures.
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. And be sure to stop by the website, songtalk.ca, to browse past shows and find out how you can be a guest. Stay safe, everyone. Check out the Rutles mockumentary, and keep on writing, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Cheers.
Maybe they'll do a Song Talk mockumentary. Someone can make a drink.
Irish castanets, ice in a glass.
Someone came and gave you a drink. That was very nice.
The more whiskey you put in there, the deeper the note.